Welcome to Small Practice Report information session number 55. In this recording, personnel from Docusign talk to Justin Purcell about eSignatures and Agreement Cloud.
You're all very welcome to Small Practice Information Session 55. I'm here with some of the team members from Docusign, Kieran, Glenn and Maria, who handle the Irish market, and they'll be speaking to us today about the potential benefits of using an eSignature service, what the legal standing it has in Ireland today, and allow for some of the questions at the end of the session also. So Docusign is the world's #1 eSignature company with over a million organizations signed up. So you're all very welcome. Kieran, Maria and Glenn, we're delighted to have you here today. So Kieran, if you want to take us away, I'll stop sharing my screen, and you're all very welcome to the call. If you'd like to ask the team any questions, we'll take them on the chat. So over to you, Kieran.
Thanks, Maine, for the intro there, Justin, and thanks, Maine, to everybody for joining the call first and foremost. No, it's not the easiest thing to sit into a Zoom webinar when it's 20-something degrees heat wherever you're joining us from. So really appreciate you putting the time aside. And if you're joining us from the recorded session, I don't blame you for doing that either. That's all very understandable. So look, we'll fly into things here now and we'll get things kicked off. So yeah, as Justin's already mentioned, myself, Maria and Glenn work across the Irish market. You'll be hearing from Glenn and Maria as we move further down through the session. Maria will be handling the product demo and Glenn will be feeding the questions and answers at the end of the session. So yeah, we'll hear from both of them in due course here as well today. Yeah, so today's agenda is on the screen there now. It's very simple, really. We'll briefly get an overview of eSignature and its legality in Ireland before jumping into a product demo with Maria. So yeah, it's a really simple agenda. But if there's any questions that do pop up throughout, feel free to pop them into the chat and we can deal with them at the end of the session. So yeah, to kick things off, I suppose, as Justin's already mentioned as well, there is more than 1 million organizations who use Docusign eSignature today. So they range from the world's largest companies to local businesses. And in the Irish SME space, we have over 1,500 current customers, and that number is growing daily. They're in every industry, whether that's sales, HR, legal, finance, real estate. The list really is endless. But the legal sector is one of our fastest growing industries. We now have over 72 firms signed up to Docusign in Ireland, and that number is rising as well on the daily. The reason customers are signing up to Docusign is because clients and customers are now demanding that agreements can be completed on the go, and our customers need to be able to invest time in their billable hours rather than spend it on the manual processes. So a UK study by Thomson Reuters in 2016 estimated that manual processes is costing firms there £2,100 per year per solicitor. With the impact of COVID, I'm sure most firms here would agree that that figure has no doubt risen. So Docusign can really alter this for companies. So here you see the broader picture of the Docusign Agreement Cloud. Companies and people tend to know Docusign for our standard electronic signature piece, and the vast majority who use Docusign on a daily basis use it for exactly that purpose. But Docusign has expanded to grow beyond just that purpose, and we really are much more than just an e-signature piece now. We can interact at any stage of your agreement process through our hundreds of integrations and the standalone features. So yeah, as mentioned already, one of the key benefits is that we do allow companies to do business faster and better by delivering mobile and easy-to-use experiences to employees and customers. So across the eSignature customer base, 82% of agreements are completed in less than a day, and 50% are completed in less than 15 minutes. So your employees can send documents and sign documents on virtually any device with the highest rated mobile apps on both the mobile app store and the Google Play Store. The Docusign eSignature mobile app has by far the most reviews in the electronic signature category and an average of 4.9 out of 5 stars. This is reflected in the fact that we own 72% of the market share when it comes to eSignature also. So I suppose the key thing is we can do things in a speedy manner, but what about the legality? And I know that's front of mind for everybody who's on the call here today. So all our features aside, The first question myself and Glenn and Maria get asked on any call is about legality. It's perhaps better framed as being about enforceability. In other words, if my agreement were to be legally challenged, will my use of eSignature in this situation help ensure an enforceable agreement? So at the end of the day, a signature is merely evidence of the intent of a party to be bound by the terms of an agreement. So let's look at this from the perspective of the evidence of an eSignature can actually provide. So specifically, let's compare the evidence around the traditional wet signature and a Docusign eSignature. A paper and ink signature provides a squiggly line and possibly a date if you're lucky. Whereas a Docusign eSignature provides the same customized squiggly line, a detailed timestamp, email address of the envelope recipient, IP addresses for all devices used to access and sign, and optionally, a range of more advanced identity proof points. Finally, that information is saved in a highly secure container that preserves the evidence of the signer's intents. And on your page here now, you can see the secure audit trail that is created upon completion of a document. So this is made readily available for use as court evidence via our certificate of completion. The document can be created by any agreement sender or signer with 2 clicks and saved as a PDF, along with the accompanying agreement. So let's take a look at the audit trail generated by Docusign platform for every transaction. We call this the certificate of completion, and it is admissible as evidence in legal proceedings. If anyone disputes the validity of the signature, the certificate contains all relevant information about the transaction, including the name, the email address, the IP address, and all geolocations of the signatures. The tracking history, completion of any additional steps to authenticate the signature is also contained within this document. So this is what really provides the legal standing for your completed transactions. And IDIS, which I'm sure many people on the call are already familiar with, is the body who is responsible across the European Union for organising electronic signatures. It's paved the way for a unified signature market within the EU, and it identifies 3 levels of signature: electronic, advanced, and qualified, all of which Docusign does support. But I suppose the key question you're wondering is, what does IDIS mean for you? It means that cross-border transactions are easier, but the IDIS does not prescribe what level of signature is required. So the standard electronic signature applies to most use cases across Ireland and the UK due to common law. If there are exceptions to that, then Docusign can support these in the vast majority. There's one slight exception currently at the moment, which is the execution of deeds. Although this is set to change as companies continue to demand more from their electronic signature provider. We do support e-witnessing. It's just not recognised as having the same legal standing as a wet signature for that purpose within Ireland at the moment. And yeah, so like another question is Docusign supported outside of Ireland and the UK? And yes, we're supported in over 180 countries globally. So each of these countries has their own rules. In Europe, as we mentioned specifically, it's the eIDIS, and that's the pan-European regulation for signatures. But Docusign is compliant with all signature regulations across the globe. And yeah, on your screen there at the moment, you can see a list of our certifications and our privacy standards. So Docusign makes significant investments in enterprise security and operations. We undergo rigorous scrutiny by third-party auditors to assess and validate the security measures we currently have in place. So we consistently meet or exceed these national and international security standards. And we demonstrate continual leadership in defining, I suppose, industry best practices for third-party audits, certifications, and on-site customer reviews. So now, at this point, I'm sure you've all heard enough of me talking. Docusign really is a very, very visual tool. So I think it makes much more sense to have a look at what this will look like on your side as a user, and what it will look like on your client's side when they sign up to the document. So I'm going to hand it over to Maria for the much more interesting part of the presentation and the demonstration.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Kieran, and lovely to be here today, guys. Hopefully you are tuning in from somewhere sunny. So really the purpose of today's demo is just to give you a little taste around Docusign, as Kieran said, see it from the perspective of someone sending out an agreement, seeing it from the perspective of someone signing it, and really just how simple and fast that secure transaction can be. So I'm going to jump over into my Docusign account. So can you see my Docusign okay there, guys? Yeah? Cool.
Looks good.
Great, thank you. So I'm just going to log in quickly here. So for anyone who doesn't know Docusign, essentially it's a cloud platform. So that means you can log in from, you know, your phone, your PC, your tablet, basically wherever you like to work from, and you can log in from there. And you're going to be brought into your Docusign homepage. So at Docusign, this is our standalone platform. But the great thing is there's lots of other different ways of using Docusign. So we have about 700 connectors, which means that you can send from a different platform using Docusign. Some examples of these are like Salesforce, Google, SAP. So, you know, if you have one in mind, do give us a shout, and we could well have something in there already. But for now, we're going to focus on the standalone platform that you guys can see on screen. So when you do log in, the first thing that you're going to get is visibility into your document. So action required, essentially anything that I need to sign. Waiting for others is anything that you've sent out and is waiting for someone to sign off on. Expiring soon is anything that's going to go out of date. So you can actually even apply like expirations onto your agreements. And why is this good? So you can essentially protect your business, you know, against people signing off on terms which shouldn't be after a certain date. And then you also have your completed section. So that's going to have all your signed documents available in here. So straight away, guys, you know, what you get is that transparency, not having to scroll through your emails to understand, you know, where your different agreements are at. So just making your life that little bit easier. So what you can see then, if we jump into, say, this completed section, it has a little shortcut behind it, and it's going to redirect us in here into my manage page. So the manage page is actually where all your agreements will live. Very similar to the way your mailbox works, so it's very easy to navigate around because of that. So on the left hand side, you have your inbox, sent box, drafts. As I said, very similar to your any of your different types of mailboxes. And then here you have each of your different envelopes, or each of the different transactions that you have progressed. So in Docusign's world, the envelope is our unit of transaction, so that can have multiple documents, and it can also have multiple people wrapped into the one envelope, as we would call it. So that's just a little bit around your manage page. And as I said, that's your kind of central repository for all your documents. So what we're going to do now, we're going to jump back home, and let's imagine that we're ready to get a document sent out to be signed. So from here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit the start, hit my send an envelope, and then we're just going to be required to fill out a couple of things to get my document sent out. Step one, we're going to add in a document itself. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to very easily drag and drop an NDA. I've been creating it offline, and I'm ready now to get it sent out. So I'm just going to drag that guy in here. Notice that it is a Word document, but when you send out any agreement through Docusign, we'll always transform it into a PDF, just to highlight that. What you will see at this point is that Docusign has actually had a quick look at the document, and it says you actually have a template that matches this agreement. So it's clever enough to recognize that already. A little bit around the template, it's essentially it's essentially a way to build out like some business rules around the standardized document. So it just helps you, not having to repeat the same steps when you're always sending it out to maybe the same people or the similar type of people. So it just really speeds up the process from that perspective. So always just the best practice that I like to highlight at this point. Before I do actually go ahead and use this, what you will see behind is that nothing is currently filled out. So you don't have to use a template, but again, just kind of speeds the process up. So until I do use the template, that's all blank. But when I do go ahead and apply that, what we are going to see is that there's going to be quite a lot of things that are actually populated there for me. So the next part is going to be the workflow. So essentially, for my example, I have a client who's going to sign first, and I'm then going to have someone from my admin team as the second person in the workflow. I've designed this myself to go in this sort of a sequence. Totally up to you if you want them to receive it like one after the next, or if you want them to receive it at the same time. What you can do very nicely up here on the top right is just get a kind of a visual representation of that. So here I can see who my sender is, I can see who person number 1 will be, and then person number 2. So that's a little bit around the workflow. You could then see that each recipient or receiver has a business placeholder, a name, somewhere to pop in the email address, and then also an action. Here I've left this blank because, every time I send out an NDA, the client will change. But you can see, for example, with my admin team, I can actually pre-populate them ahead of time if it's always the same person. So again, just speeding up the process a little bit. And then finally, what we also can see here is that you have someone who's going to sign, but then you also have someone who doesn't need to be signed, but we do still need to notify them. So imagine this is someone that you need to update with your document, you need to email it to them, or if they're on a different team to maybe kick off some other processes. So the receive a copy is great from that perspective. So I'm just going to pop in the name of my client. For today, we're going to be sending it to Elton John. So let's imagine that he's just about to sign a new record deal. So we need to get him to sign off on some agreements. So that is our workflow. And just to highlight, guys, really the speed of that. So the moment, in this case, Elton has signed, our admin is going to immediately receive a copy of that signed document within seconds. So that is our process that we're going to see today. Then just to highlight a couple of other softer business rules that you can add into your transaction. So if you ever find that people are quite slow at returning documents and you're constantly having to call them or email them, what you can do is actually set up reminders so that Docusign will now do that manual task for you instead. So how this works, again, you define how often they receive them. In my case, I'm going to wait for the first 3 days, and then I'm going to send them a little gentle nudge. They'll receive an email to say, hey, you still have a document waiting to be signed. So again, just removing that manual task, giving yourselves some more time back to do, some more non-admin tasks, let's say. Expirations we spoke about a little bit. So again, you can say, okay, once it hits a certain date, document is no longer accessible to the signers. You also have your branding, so you can apply the branding of your org. It's going to be on every email notification that comes from your Docusign account. And again, it just really increases the customer trust when they see it. And just a nice marketing touch to have there as well. And then finally, the last thing to point out here is our responsive signing. So obviously, with more and more people using mobile phones and so on to go about their daily tasks, you want to make sure it's a really nice experience. So this will basically just make sure that the document presents nicely, irregardless of the type of device that they're looking at it on. Okay, so that's step 1. And then step 2 is actually just the document itself. So this is where I'm going to pop on my fields. Now, here what you can see on the right is our different kind of thumbnails, so I can see the different pages. If I jump down here to page number 2, I can see I have some fields already there for me. And again, this is because the template had them set up, so it always remembers where to put them. If I didn't use a template, it's a very simple drag and drop feature just to get them included. So it is very easy, you know, irregardless of whether you use that template or not. So I'm happy with how this looks. If I had a couple of people signing, then I would have different colors representing the different signers at this point. So from here, I'm going to pop send. And great thing is I'll be able to track it throughout the whole process. So I can see it here, and then we'll be able to, you know, see who's holding off the process, if there's any bottlenecks at this point. So that's very much the sending process. I'm going to jump over into Elton's shoes. So going to jump over into his inbox. Great thing, you don't need any type of Docusign account, literally just an email that we can contact, that we can deliver the mail to them on. When I open up the email, you can straight away see the lovely branding of Tally. We will never attach the agreement in here to the email, as we don't believe it's a secure way of sending your documents. So instead, what we'll do is we'll invite them up into Docusign's cloud platform to securely sign the document itself. So here I can have a quick scroll down, I can have a look at the different pages, and then I'm going to use this guy just to pop me down to the, you know, the bits I need to fill out. I'm going to go ahead and sign. And what you can see is that I have a couple of different ways of signing. And we really don't mind how the signature looks. And the reason for that is because we're going to collect a lot of digital evidence about Elton behind the scenes, you know, to show that he did actually sign the document. So I'm going to say adopt and sign. My name and date was already filled in, and then I can pop in my title if I like. If I try to finish it before there's some fields, you know, incomplete, I won't actually be allowed. So again, this is going to make sure that your agreement will come back with the correct information and that you're not having to chase up people again, you know, if they have not filled them out correctly. A couple of other fields you have, you know, if you want to say, you know, do you guys have a VAT number? If yes, then fill it in. If no, then you don't have to. Just making it a user-friendly form so they don't have to enter in additional information. As well as that, what you can also do is pop in some validation. So for example, here, if I ask for a postcode and I don't put in the correct format, DocuSign is going to give me a little error as well. And then finally, you can add in like some checkboxes if you want to get a yes or no answer from people, and a few other options then here as well. So from the signer's perspective, very fast, very user intuitive, just to fly down through that. And that is pretty much the end of it. So once then we jump back in to my sender's shoes, what we're going to do, we're going to quickly refresh this. And what we will now have is a completed workflow. So we will have kind of the name of the people, when they signed, and then we're going to have a look finally at the audit trail and what we provide there around the proof of transaction. So here we have the fully completed process. I can see that my admin team have now received the copy without me having to forward it on or anything. And then finally here what we have is the history or the full audit trail of the process. So here you have, you know, a step-by-step, very granular detail around the transaction. Great for audits, you know, if ever in the future there's kind of anything disputed, you have that full history. And then what we also have, which Kieran mentioned at the start, is our certificate of completion. This is going to be your court admissible document, all of the details around the transaction. And we do produce one of these for every envelope or every unit. And essentially the details on these are like the unique envelope ID, information around your signers. So we always have name, email, style of signature, where and when this happened. And then if anyone else was recorded in, we also display them. Okay, so that's really it from myself, guys. Hopefully you've gotten a good taste of what the kind of sending process looks like and how easy it is to find as well. And yeah, hopefully the pace was okay for everyone today as well.
Well, thanks a lot, Maria. We're going to take some questions and answers now. So maybe I'll start off with a question. So Kieran, or feel free to answer, whoever is, like, have you received, how many people are using this in Ireland, and have you engaged, had any barriers to what types of work can be used with e-signatures, or how have you found the adoption in the market at the moment?
So I'll take that. Justin, sorry. In the
Yeah, thanks,
SME space, we have, I'd say, about 500 or 600 customers at the moment. I think across Ireland we've about 1,200. I could be wrong on exact figures there, but we're thereabouts. So we're seeing some quite quick and rapid adoption to DocuSign, especially over the change to remote working situations. I suppose the key thing with ourselves is that we aren't just that e-signature piece anymore. We do offer a lot more around likes of ID verification. So within different businesses and within different industries, there are different specifics that we can fit in and help them improve. In terms of the qualified electronic signature, in terms of generation pieces, negotiation pieces as well that we do offer. So it's not really a one size fits all, and two companies that stand side by side might look the same, but the internal process are different, and we can adapt to that, adapt to how they need it.
Okay, my question was kind of maybe also around, like, can you use it for wills? Can you use it for conveyancing? Can you use it for legal business documents? Like, is there any?
So the big restriction is deeds at the moment, as Kieran touched on. We do offer a witness piece, but it's not fully compliant with the laws around deeds in Ireland, and it is something that we're hoping to see change, which we've seen happen in the UK from the inception of this witness piece that we do offer.
So there's a question there regarding case management systems, and how does that integrate into the main case management systems that the legal firms use? I know that's quite a technical question, but do you have any?
Yeah. Do you want Maria? Maybe?
I can take that one. Yeah. So I guess it depends on what your case management system is. We could already have an integration in there, or there is also the option to do a custom integration, which means that, if you did have some resources that you guys could kind of hook it up into that management system. But I think do reach out to the guys afterwards to see if that if we do have that connector or not. But we do integrate into case management systems already.
Yeah. There's a question there around key house computing. Does it link in with their system? I'm not too sure whether you know or whether you need to take it offline.
I think we would need to take that offline just because there's so many. So we just need to double check that one.
So somebody's making a comment there, or John is making a comment that there are a number of sisters in Waterford using the Docusign for contracts for sale and bidding systems. That's a good shout out for you guys. So a question there for how do you deal with documents that require the signature to be witnessed?
So in terms of the witness feature, the way it works is, and we can have the discussion offline as well and show you through. But basically, the company would send it out to the client that's going to send a document for signature. They would nominate their witness, and that witness would then have to. They would receive the email via DocuSign, and they would then have to fill in certain information like you generally would. Correct me if I'm wrong, Maria, your name, email, occupation, and there's a date of birth.
Location.
Location is the fourth one. So they'll have to fill in that information, and they can witness the signature from there.
And so a question there is like, how much does all this cost? Do I just buy one key to use it, or if I have multiple users, how does it work?
So costings with ourselves isn't a one size kind of fits all. We work off a mix of the number of users that need to send documents for signature. We saw Maria signing for free, and then the number of documents. We actually don't use documents, we use the envelope, so you can send multiple documents in an envelope to a client. You might have an onboarding pack, for example. So we work off a mixture of that, and depending on then the level of functionality that you need, there's a few different metrics. So we build a bespoke plan based off the requirement of the company on users, functionality, and the volume of documents that they need to send.
So the best thing is really to contact you guys if to discuss what your individual companies need or use is. If anybody else wants to ask the question, we're just coming up in the last 2 minutes of the call. Is there anything else you guys want to add in relation to Docusign and on its adoption in Ireland? And
yeah, so I suppose like if there is any questions, if anybody on the call today, like myself and Glenn's email address are attached here. As Glenn mentioned, that our plans are quite bespoke, so we can talk through any specific issues. No two calls are ordinarily the same when we speak to customers. So it's always good to reach out, let us know if you're interested, and we can set something to discuss in more detail from there.
Okay. So John, thanks for that feedback there. He says his understanding is that the Law Society Business Committee's guidance is that e-signatures can be used for witnessed signatures. However, there are certain restrictions in the Act, e.g. wills and land transfers. So I think what we're witnessing here is just maybe an evolving situation as people become more comfortable with these types of new technologies, and we're trying to introduce more of these technologies to these calls, that more of the regular day-to-day sort of transactions that solicitors deal with will you'll be able to use technology to resolve the problems. So guys, we're just coming up to the last minute of the call. Thanks a million for participating. Thanks everyone for all your questions. Next week, we're joined by Alana Fearon from the Law Society, who's going to talk about another new piece of technology, the Law Society Directory app, which allows you to basically access the law directory. Is no longer printed, only on request, and you can access it using the web or your phone itself. So she's going to give us a talk around that as well. So hopefully you'll all join us next week. Many thanks again to Kieran, Maria, and Glenn for taking the time out to join us today and tell us all about Docusign. Thanks everyone for joining us. Hopefully you'll join us next week. Slán.